now this is officially take 106. This is actually take 106. Okay. So hello, everybody. I am with, honestly, my best friend, Cameron Loughran. I've known you since we were in kindergarten. It's the first time we ever met, and I'm 24, you're 25, and we're in Florida together right now doing this again. So I don't know, maybe if you're like an OG watcher, if you've ever seen like some of the stuff I randomly put out on YouTube, you would have saw about 7 or so years ago, Cameron and I made a podcast together. It was the same title as what this one is, but it was just so long ago and it was so old and I didn't like the editing style. And but now I think is a great opportunity for him and I to sit down once again, once we're in our young adult years, and run this back. So, I mean, I want to get started, dude, and you can pick this up wherever you want, but as an outsider and just seeing how from the kid, you being like a troublemaker to, because I was in kindergarten with you, and just seeing how you went from kindergarten the whole way as an adult now is like super incredible and super inspiring. So
thank you.
I really want to, I'll let you pick where you want to start your journey and we'll go from there, bro. I just want to hear the ins, the outs, and the obstacles you've overcome, how you ended up here.
Man, we can go as far back as far back. A lot of the things that happened when I was in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, like you remember when I called the ambulance and fire department?
Which time?
Good point. But a lot of that stemmed from my childhood and childhood traumas. My mom's always tried to do the absolute best she could for me, and I love my mom to death. It's just one of those things that once I got older and I was able to work, I wanted to help provide for my mom because she wasn't very financially stable. And that's where I knew that I could make an impact, but I was super young, and, my mom's on government assistance. So they wanted to take 50% of my income off rip. And that just wasn't going to happen. My mom wasn't cool with it. I wasn't cool with it. So I was indirectly forced out of my mom's apartment at 18. And I was at GNC, General Nutrition Center, and I was a sales rep my senior year. Went and moved in with my buddy Jason and Derek, and we got a small, tiny little house. But, we were renting that out. And 6 months later, I was manager at GNC. Was with them for 4 years. Started competitive bodybuilding. From that point, it was just a crazy journey. From when we last had our podcast, I was just getting into competitive bodybuilding, and I think I just did my first show. With Taylor as my coach, which was the Eastern Natural USA. Won the overall there, and then at that point, kept getting more in love with fitness, health, positivity, mindset. And I knew I was destined for more, but I never knew really how I was going to do it. And I thought it was always going to be from bodybuilding, from competing. And I was dead set on that. And that taught me so much throughout, 7 years now. But man, life will take you places that you never could imagine. And if you can't imagine it, it's going to take you in a completely different path than you really think. And I think you can speak well on that too, because, we're from the same little hometown up north, and now we're in Tampa, and beautiful view. And yeah, man, the opportunities are crazy. But moving from bodybuilding, I did, 5, 6 shows, 7 shows, did really well in those. And I still want to continue to bodybuild. But it came down to the point where I was facing a lot of struggles within my daily life of not having the resources, not having the finances to be able to feel like I'm all in on bodybuilding, because it's extremely expensive. Those that are watching, if you guys bodybuild, it's no game to play around with. And you got to take care of yourself in multiple aspects. So once I developed the mindset to continue after pursuing bodybuilding, trying to get my pro card, it came down to a point where I had a relationship. It didn't go well, and she ended up taking pretty much everything from me. It was a bad time, and went ahead right from there, moved back in with my sister, because I moved from Derek and Jason's house to my brother's house, and then from my brother's house went to my sister's, and then went to moving in with this girl. Terrible mistake, but you live and you learn. I didn't take it as hatred or negativity. I just moved on, try to better myself. From that point, moved back in with my sister. was really lost. Felt like I took a step back in life. I was on my own, paying all my own bills, thriving, and then suddenly your life just gets turned upside down. And it wasn't the first time in my life that my life was turned upside down, right? So it was nothing new, but it was definitely just heartbreaking and kind of like, where do I go? I felt like I took a step back as a man because no one wants to move back in with their family, right? Even if it was my sister. My sister's incredible. She's done so much for me. So she took me in without any thought, and I'll always give her the time of day and the credit for where I am today, because she came in and picked me up when I really didn't know what to do, and she helped me kind of put my head back on straight. I was sleeping on her couch for like a couple months, and crazy enough, met Izzy within that time frame. Didn't mean anything for it to happen, and we got engaged. About a month later, moved across the country. Literally just packed my stuff up because I didn't have anything from the previous relationship. So it was like, now's a perfect time. I got cut a nice little settlement check from leaving GNC, and went ahead and moved across the country with Jason and Allie. And they helped me out, let me stay with them for a little bit. So I got on my feet down here, was going door to door knocking for 8 months, made a good bit of money. But it's Tampa. It's hot, bro. It's hot. So
No kidding.
walking 95-degree heat, and then detailing on top of it, and just trying to stay up with that. No other marketing channels. Didn't know anything about business yet. I just knew that, man, I love cars. It's Florida. I want to go talk to multimillionaires, and hang out with them. So I did just that. Me and Jason had a really successful running, but we had some conflict, and I don't recommend anyone to get in business with their best friend. I do think that can kill the relationship. Me and Jason are still close. Love him to death too, but it was just one of those things that it was his dream, not my dream. And I needed to kind of go on my own and create my own path. So I got a job, DoorDash for a little while down here, just to try to make some ends meet, living paycheck to paycheck in debt, get into a job about $5,000 in debt, and became a manager within 4 months of being with AT&T. Was a manager ever since. So 4 years later, I did 2 shows down in Florida. I did an amazing job in Florida. The St. Pete Pro was by far my most favorite show that I've ever done. Shout out Dan, the one that puts the show on. But yeah, from that point forward, I kind of didn't fall out of bodybuilding, because I still bodybuild. I still love to work out. I love fitness. But I knew that, okay, I need more finances and I need more resources to be able to give my all and get my pro card, because I was so close. Out of 7 shows, I've gotten 6 second places. Yes, that still qualifies for nationals, but at the same time, it was one of those things that I can't go be and compete against the best amateurs in the world if I'm not myself at 100% as an amateur, right? I can say mindset's 100%. Physically, I'm quote unquote 100%, but when you can't get those deep tissues every single other 2 weeks, or you can't, go get a glutathione IV drip, or you can't do XYZ that costs money, and it's tough to be able to be an amateur bodybuilder with little to no finances and try to make it happen. So once I came to that realization, it was like, all right, cool. Now I'm a manager. I'm going to focus on, trying to be the best manager I can be, and ended up running one of the #1 stores in Tampa for about a year. And that was super cool. It was a full circle moment. I was hired into that store as a sales rep. 4 months later, manager, moved to a different store, bring that store from the ground up, and then could get the opportunity to come back to the store I was hired at, take over, and run that store for a year. And had plenty of success there, plenty of success in the company, but I've always wanted to get into real estate somehow. And, next thing you know, I'm looking up over the multiple years of how to wholesale, getting into wholesaling. You guys see the 10-second clips of people saying, oh, I'll make one phone call, I'll make 20 grand, a lot of clickbait in the industry for sure, but that's with any industry now. So I bought a couple courses back then, a couple books, wasn't a big reader, never read the books. So I kind of was just like, this isn't going to work. This isn't for me. I don't understand. Didn't have a mentor, didn't have the money for a mentor because I was still competing. And then at that point, yeah, man, Izzy moved down. I went ahead and moved in with her. We got a bulldog and a pug. So, she brought Ruby down, and then we got Bowser. And Bowser had a stomach issue. He was adopted, and he had a corn cob, needed to have immediate surgery 10 days after having him. And she's been in Florida for 6 months, getting a job down here, graduating college, etc. So she's went through her own battles. But once we got Bowser, it was kind of like a big realization moment of like, okay, like we got to figure out how this is going to happen, because I wanted a bulldog so bad. That was my dream dog. I've never had a dog of my own because me and my mom lived in an apartment. We never really had animals. So when we had a couple cats, but I wanted a dog. I was surrounded by dogs literally all over the place. So yeah, I got a bulldog. He had surgery. We saved his life not once but twice. And then yeah, my mind went right back into real estate and business and how I can create my own company. And I developed so much through bodybuilding, as far as like consistency, determination, mindset, being comfortable being alone, not looking for validation from the outside people, and really just allowing myself to be the best I can be in the present moment without thinking too far into the past and reflecting and being negative of like, oh, I could have done this better, I could have done that better. And because bodybuilding is there's a lot of criticism. There's a lot of critiquing that's involved, especially with posing. You wake up, you feel like you don't look good, but you're peeled. And then same thing with sales. Sales is up and down, so it's all about, when you show up, are you putting in the best effort that you can? Are you putting in the most effort that you can? Are you making sure you can get paid? And I feel like a lot of people resonate with that nowadays, because sales is one of the most lucrative industries in the world. It doesn't matter what industry it is, it's a form of sales, and any business that you open is a form of sales. So I was like, you know what? I did this for mobile detailing. I know I can do it in another aspect. And I got myself up to a point financially where I was able to pay for mentorships and, my LLC, and start really deep diving, read 3-4 books about wholesaling real estate, had a mentor that, the community wasn't ideal for what I was looking for. I'm not going to say it was bad, because there was a lot of, people doing and seeing success in that community, but I didn't want to cold call. I didn't want to, email blast. I didn't want to lengthen the process. I wanted to get straight to it, talk to motivated people, and figure out how to make it happen. And I knew that, no, you can't make 10 grand off a phone call, right? But like, you can. It comes with consistency, and you got to make a couple hundred dials before you even get that one person to say yes. So it was tough at first, and I just put my nose into the grindstone and went all in. Every ounce and every penny that I had, I was buying different lead sources, different softwares, different books, education courses. I mean, you name it, I was trying to learn everything about the industry, how to, hire different people, train people up, and get to a point where, I'm actually profitable. I'm doing my own thing. I am my own boss. I can quit my 9 to 5 and fully just have the freedom that I'm looking for. And then in turn, go back into bodybuilding with that financial, freedom and that time allocation that I can just go all in and be at 100% and get my pro card. So it's one of those things that I just, it's been a crazy, crazy, crazy journey. But I do appreciate you and your mom. You guys have seen me since I was tiny, and man, it's crazy over the years of watching you and your experiences, and you going all over the world, and you and your mom going skydiving, and yeah, just so many cool things, man. So many cool things that I think we both have experienced, and I'm happy that we're finally getting to do this, because 7 years ago when we did a podcast, man, it was rough, but it was great.
If you would have told us then that the next time you guys do this, this is where we'd be doing this,
I wouldn't believe you. I wouldn't believe you one bit. It just goes to show that you can put you can do anything you believe in.
Yeah.
If you believe in yourself and you believe in your vision, the right people will follow. And I'm sure a lot of people from back home are going to be watching this. And it's one of those things that you just can't give up. No matter how hard it gets, no matter where life takes you, you just can't give up on what you want out of life. And it's all achievable. It just takes grit and determination, and nothing worth having is easy.
Yeah.
You know? So choose your heart and kind of go from there.
Something I'm realizing, like, actually right now in this moment is, like, as we sit up here, like, it's almost the meaning of it kind of is gone. Like, I was telling you, like, my dream car is a Nissan GTR, and one of my clients let me drive it one day, and I was telling you after I drove it, I'm like, dude, I was like, the time that you and me went to that event together here was like so much more special to me than the feeling of that GTR. And I'm really starting to feel now, like, all of the stuff that's in our grasp that we can achieve, it's like, it almost to me just has lost all of its meaning. Like, I remember before I even moved out of my mom's house a couple years ago, and I was like, I had a vision board on my wall of like things, and there was a picture of a GTR. There was a picture of like a skyrise condo on the inside like this, and then there was a picture of like my dream physique. And at the time, I was like, I would have gave up everything to have all of them. I would have been like, oh my god, this is all I want. This is everything I want to be. This is it. Like, I need these things. And then now that like we're here, now all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, it's not everything.
Yeah, it's not everything, man. And I've had that same experience because, I've worked with Lamborghinis, Ferraris, and, mobile detailing was dope, dude. I met so many cool people, so many multimillionaires. But the biggest thing is they're just normal people, bro. They're no different than you and me. They're no different than anyone watching this video. So it was just crazy to have conversations with them. And, once you get that experience, it's kind of like, this is cool, but, I thought it'd be different. I thought that it would be more fulfilling and more rewarding, but it's one of those things that money isn't everything.
Yeah.
Everything materialistic is literally materialistic. It's fake.
Yeah.
It's not going to go with you when you die. So I think that's where it comes from for us, is we wanted all these big things, and now we have these big opportunities. We have all these rewards, and it's like, wow, this is special, but what's next? Like, how can I get to the next level? What is the next level? And yeah, man, it's super cool. It's super cool. But to your point, yeah, it's materialistic things, man. And no amount of money will be able to justify the feeling of the event we went to, and being able to experience that with you and talk to people and just vibe out, have a good time with like-minded people. It wasn't the fact that, guys wearing a Audemars Baguette and, got red bottoms on. It's the fact that he was just a normal dude, right?
It's the fact that you got to watch me look like an idiot getting a facial by that booth.
Hey, we had a good time. We went in and we were just ourselves.
Yeah.
It was no different. Like, we didn't try to be someone we weren't. That's the biggest thing, I think, is we went in with the intentions of, we're going to meet some cool ass people. We're going to have a good time.
Yeah.
And there was no like, oh, I got to look a certain way, talk a certain way, dress a certain way. It was just, we showed up exactly who we are and vibed out for the night. And I think that's what life is all about, man. I don't think it's, having a massive penthouse or Ferraris or a yacht. Like, yeah, those are all cool things, but they don't bring the satisfaction of a good time.
We had a conversation that night because I asked you, and that night I was kind of struggling. It was one of my first couple months here, and I'm like, dude, like, my mental health is kind of all over the place right now. Like, and you've, my whole life, dude, I've always known you as the absolute hardest working, most, especially from where you've came from too. You just have this like ultimate mindset to you that's like almost feels unbeatable. And I want to hear, throughout your entire journey, from at any point, what was some of your lowest moments mentally that you faced, and then how did you overcome them? And what are some things that throughout this entire process really helped you to, I don't want to necessarily say ground yourself, but to stay in the best possible frame of mind? Like, what were specific eating habits that helped you? What were specific things that you did in your routine that just made you feel calm? What were some mindset shifts you had to make just to let go of some old things to keep yourself from burning out? Talk to me about that.
I think the most important part is letting yourself be emotional. That's how you stay the most grounded, is by feeling your own feelings and processing those feelings. Because I'm a Cancer. I was born in July. I'm emotional. I have seasonal depression, whatever you want to call it. But Yeah, it's just one of those things that I sulk in those moments and I accept those moments because here's an example. After my show, it was 2 days after my show when I got basically kicked out of my ex's place, and that was one of the lowest points of my life, for sure. One of them, just off the pure fact that I felt like I took a step back in life, and I didn't know what to do, what was going on, what's next, how do I like, where do I even begin? And it was just let me sit in the moment, accept what I'm feeling, cry, be mad, scream, whatever I needed to in the moment, but I didn't let that weigh on me. And I was like, okay, how do I figure out like what's first? What do I got to do now? And that's where I took the opportunity to move to Florida. And then, once I got out of the car detailing business, it was okay. Well, I just had a pretty big argument with one of the closest people, the only closest person I have down here, because you weren't down here at the time. I didn't have Izzy down here. So I really was purely alone in that moment. And that was another lowest point in my life. It was like, did I make the right decision moving across the country, leaving my family, my friends, my bodybuilding coach, you know, everyone back home? Did I make the right decision? Did I do the right thing? And it was, again, soaking in that moment. I went to the beach, I read a book, and I just sat in the moment of like, okay, this was meant to be. Everything happens for a reason. Where do I go now? And it's creating that action plan and not allowing yourself to just spin. Because I feel like a lot of people, when they get depressed or they get anxiety, they just spin. They can't process their emotions. They don't know how, and they don't know how to accept them, most importantly. So that's kind of what really helped me was just, going outside. Like I told you at the event, when you told me that, it's like, bro, just go outside. Like sit in nature and just accept what's going on, and relax, listen to the birds, like don't look at your phone, don't take anything, just vibe out and enjoy you being in nature, and that, you know to an ant we're nothing, or we're massive to an ant, right? But to an ant, to us, is nothing. So it's just one of those things that there's a lot of things bigger than us, and I feel like everyone is very much about them. you know, this happened to me. I did this. Why isn't this working for me? And it's them, 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 you. And you just got to think bigger scale, you know, like just go out, enjoy nature, allow yourself to feel those feelings and move forward. Because until you accept them, you're going to hang on to them forever. It's never going to go away.
That's I've been trying to learn how to accept these things bigger. I never, I guess I never really learned as a kid, like when you feel something, how to truly accept it. Um, I can't exactly pinpoint where or how that comes from yet, but how could I or how could anybody watching become better, or what's something simple and tangible that you can do to accept what you're feeling, to try to kind of lose all of that weight that it has on you?
I would say also have like a big part of it is having a good support system, right? Having people that you can come to and be vulnerable and be like, hey, man, I'm not in a good spot right now. Like you did to me that night. Like, hey, dude, like I'm kind of lost. Like, what do I do? And us having that conversation reframed your brain, reframed your thinking. And I'd say a simple task would be reading. Literally just read a positivity book, say positive affirmations, and allow yourself to live in that moment that you are not your past. You are not what happened to you. You are what you are in the moment. And if you say that you're not sad when you're sad, you could still be sad, but you saying out loud that I'm not, and that I refuse to let that impact my decisions today, is like a big contributing factor to how I show up every day and keep the ball rolling and accepting those emotions. Because it's not suppressing it when you say it out loud that like I'm not sad or I'm not mad. It's just realizing that reality is our interpretation of reality.
Mhm.
That's the biggest key thing, is it's an interpretation. It's whatever you interpret your reality to be. So by you saying and catching those negative thoughts and reframing to the point where you're saying, you know, I will be a millionaire, I will make this happen, I will show up tomorrow, I will do these things. Even if you don't do them all, the biggest thing is stacking W's, you know, proving to yourself, building that self-confidence that, you know, I can move past this. I am able to move forward and have a better mindset, or have a better eating habit, or have a better sleep schedule, or get more sales, or, you know, the list goes on to what you can contribute that to. But yeah, I would say that's a simple task, is just read some positivity books, some mindset books, podcasts, whatever you can really get to be able to rewire your brain to think a certain way.
I think the small W thing that you were talking about is actually really huge. Like, even when you say out loud, like, to tell yourself, I will be a millionaire, I will be, like, whenever I hear that now, I almost get like stressed out by it, because it almost puts like whenever I'm saying these things to myself, I'm putting such a high level of accomplishment above my head that if I have to do. And I think for some people that might work really well, but I also think, like, for me, for example, my burnout, my overall mental health came from a place of, whenever I grew up, I was a very good baseball player, and my father like instilled that in me. He was like, you need to be the best baseball player ever. You have to be that. And if I wasn't some elite level amazing person, I got absolutely no validation. I got absolutely no unconditional love from him. And so that kind of made this relationship with me whenever I became in high school or whatever as a young adult. I'm like, I have to be the absolute best of best at absolutely everything. And if I'm not, then I am not good enough. And I never learned how to accept myself as I was. I never learned how to accept myself as mediocre. I never learned how to do any of this stuff. And so I've been really trying to figure out and overcome this relationship with myself of, how do you even give yourself love when you've never learned how? Like, and so I think for me, like, all of my burnout, all of my struggle has came from, I put so much effing pressure on myself that, like, you have to be so great at this age, you have to do so much at this age, and it just ends up leaving me burnt out.
So, I mean, for you, it's everyone's different, you know. Like, I can only speak on my experiences and what I've actually done to be able to get to the point where I'm at. And I don't think I have an ultimate mindset, right?
I don't know, dude. It's pretty close.
Everyone's has their own battles at the end of the day. I'm not perfect, but I've developed myself with, the main thing is, to your point that you said it, how can you learn to love when you haven't really figured out how, right? And that's what I believe that life is all about, is just loving your surroundings, your support system, the people around you, animals, you know. It's all love at the end of the day, and there's not enough of it in the world. And I think a big contributing factor to that is financials, right? Because that weighs a heavy burden and can really impact people's lives nowadays. So yeah, man, it's hard to pinpoint for every single person to watch this and be like, oh, you know, that's not going to work for me, because it might not. But at the end of the day, I learned how to love myself and give myself that freedom to accept my feelings. And that's the whole reason, you know, me and Izzy are getting married, and, you know, we're moving forward with our relationship, because, you know, I love her, but I've also learned to love myself. And that's where that contributes to, how can you show love or develop love when you haven't really taught yourself how. And it's more so feeding into those emotions. It goes right back. Like, you got to learn how to process them. You know, if you struggle with anger, you know, and you're not really loving and supportive, then of course you shouldn't be in a relationship. You know what I mean? You got a lot of things to work on, and a lot of things to develop before you'd be at that point to be able to go ahead and move forward in a relationship. But that's a whole different topic. You know what I mean? We could talk about that forever.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to run this back, like, when we're in like some special spot at your wedding day
Yeah.
or something, and we're all boozed up or something in our tuxedos, just run it back real
Oh
quick.
yeah, I'd be down for that. We could
That
talk
would be
about
funny.
relationships for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's incredible what we've been able to achieve, and I know that you've been going through a lot down here, you know. But it's incredible to see your journey, and you know, like you said earlier, you turned down $2,000 this week because you're working on your thing and you're trying to get your mindset right to capitalize on a bigger opportunity, and that's incredible, bro. Like, I'm happy for you in that aspect. I don't think you should look at that as like a negative aspect, but more so a positive aspect, because I think a lot of people are, you know, very subject to saying yes to everything and not saying no enough. So again, putting yourself first is the most important thing at the end of the day.
Mhm.
So you saying no to to those opportunities because you see something bigger in the horizon, that's a W.
True.
It's a W.
That was like kind of my main point with like the small W's and bringing up that whole childhood monstrosity was I wonder if like if I started actually recognizing the little W's and like just starting to compound on them, like I mean, not I guess I wouldn't say something as small as brushing my teeth, but like
No, dead ass, dude. Like, yeah, brushing your teeth, W. You know, putting in contacts, W. Making your bed, W. Eating in the morning, W. Taking the dogs outside, W. You know,
yeah,
you keep those compound interests, and it's like anything. You know, you show up for yourself at the end of the day. You don't show up for anyone else.
yeah,
So yeah, you know, compound interest on the W's. More W's you stack up, the happier you're gonna be. You're
cool.
building that self confidence to prove to yourself, no one else. That self confidence, you know, you can't see my self confidence. They can't see my self confidence. They can't see your self confidence, right? And vice versa. But at the end of the day, I know what I bring to the table as far as value, and you know what you bring to the table as far as value, whether it's photography, music, etc. So everyone has their own thing, and everyone has their own goals, and everyone has their own problems. But at the end of the day, it's all about you, man. Like, you got to focus on things that are outside of yourself, but you also got to put yourself first.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people go through life with constantly saying yes to things and not saying no to enough things. So, you know, if there's a baby shower and you tell your lady you're good with going to the baby shower, but you realistically don't want to go, you're doing yourself an inservice, you know, because you're saying yes to something that you truly don't want to do. And at the end of the day, that makes you unhappy.
Mhm.
You compound those things up to where you're doing things you don't want to do, and yes, that can be a good thing. It depends what it is, you know. And life is very intellectual. You have to know how to navigate your intellectual intelligence to be able to have the most out of life.
Fair. Okay, let's play a little fun game to wrap it
Okay.
up. If we could give someone an ultimate action plan, okay? So if someone was just sitting at home right now watching this and they're like, all right, well, that's great. You guys have all this figured out, but how the hell do I do it? If we were to let's like co-formulate an ultimate action plan for someone with like just like 5 simple steps of how they could go from being like maybe even like, oh, what if they have student loans? What if they're like, let's say they have $50,000 in student loans. They just got out of college and they're in their mom's house. They're still addicted to freaking all of their vices. And they're like, all right, well, how do I at least start making like $5,000 a month and living on my own? What would be a tangible plan for this person?
Go get a job, right? That would be my first step. Is okay. Give me a job that I want to do,
Uh-huh.
right? Not just any job. Not go be a janitor, not work at Wendy's,
Ah.
and no hit to any of you that actually do that, right? I'm thinking big term. You want to make 5,000 a month. You want to move out of your mom's basement or whatever the case is. Go get a job that you genuinely want to do and apply to as many as you possibly can. You pick the best one. Go show up for all the interviews, you know, and at the end of the day, you're selling yourself, right, to a company. And once you land that job, it's all right, let's go to work. And it's not, okay, let's go to work. It's like, let's go to work. How am I going to get there? Okay, how am I going to make that 5,000 a month? And then you reverse engineer that 5,000. And it all starts with taking action. Taking action is getting a job. You need income,
Mm-hmm.
right? You want to move out, you need income.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say get that job and then learn how to do and be the best employee at that job. Get to the top. Doesn't matter how, right? Get to the top. Could take a couple months, could take a couple years, but at the end of the day, 5,000 isn't a lot. So yeah, go ahead and put forth that best effort day in and day out.
Yeah.
And study where people don't study. So in a sales job, right? Like let's take AT&T, for example. I went and did everything in my power. I'd stayed 3 hours past close to close deals to be able to hit my bonus, right? Things that people wouldn't do, I did. And that's the most important key to get to where you want to be, is doing things that other people wouldn't do. Like no one would have closed that deal 3 hours past close. They would have just gave up and been like, oh, I can't help you, you know? And I didn't take that for an answer. I was going to get that close regardless. And I did that multiple times. So, you know, following suit, having a good boss, someone that you can rely on and go to and teach you and show you the ins and outs of whatever business you're in. Thankfully, I had one of the best managers at the time. So he was able to show me the ins and outs, and I absorbed and soaked in everything like a sponge. And I didn't just gather information and not put it to action, right? I turned around immediately day after, and I was doing everything that I could that I was told. And that's how I got to a point where I was, you know, back into a spot where, okay, now I'm bringing in more than 5,000 a month. Let's move out to mom's basement.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just get a job, develop yourself mentally. I would say step 1, get a job. Step 2, build positive habits. Wake up and, you know, get your bed ready. Make your bed. That's your, as soon as you step out the bed, you make the bed, that's W number 1, right? So it sets you up for success. You've already completed a task successfully. So you're starting the day off on a positive note. So I would say step 2 is develop positive habits. And, you know, not relying on those vices as much, or trying to lean yourself off of certain things, or not going out to drink with your friends and learning to say no, right? Step 3, I would say once you have the job and the habits, it's going to be continuous action. So from that point forward, you just take continuous, rigorous action, and you don't settle.
Yeah.
You don't become complacent.
Honestly, dude, I feel like that's it. I don't even think we need step 4 and 5.
I don't think we do, because it's just compound interest from there.
Yeah, and really just like for step 2, like for me, step 1, 100%, like go get some sort of job. You need income coming in. Step 2, any time in my life where I've ever failed, whenever I've ever crashed and burned, like it's always because I've gotten in my own way. Like when I was 22 years old and I was living in California, I had my best 3 months in a row. I closed over 60 grand in commissions in just 3 months. But in March, I took one hit of a joint, and I don't know if it was laced or what happened, or if I was just overwhelmed, but my whole world exploded. I had like the most crazy experience ever, and it destroyed my mental health. I had to move home right away. I had to like ground myself for months after that. I was out of my body entirely for months. I was having severe traumatic panic attacks from that direct experience that I had on weed, and that was like, it took me months to recover. But if from the time I moved out to California, if I wasn't just all excited because of these dispensaries and stuff, and if I would have just stayed like how I am now, sober, waking up early, adamant, doing the right things, and if I was like that when I first moved out of California, I probably would have been making a ton of money right now. I would have been in such a different spot. But it was because I got my own way. And then like any other time, if I'm just like overdoing things or indulging in substances or just not saying no, and it always ends up biting me over. If I just didn't do that, everything would have already been, and you know? And so I think that really, those are just the 3 things, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say just those 3, and that's it. We don't even need 4 and 5. Because if we're just talking like a small amount, now if we're talking like opening a business, I would say that's a little bit different. You know, a lot of people that are going to watch this are like, oh, I want to do my own thing. I don't want to work for someone else. Right. And I think we both can talk very openly about that as well. Since we're both, you know, floating in this now. So step 1 would be the same exact thing. Wouldn't change anything. Step 2 would be the same exact thing. I wouldn't change anything. Yeah. Right. Step one, instead of getting that job, it would be create your job.
Yeah.
That's the only difference.
Yep.
Frame on words.
Yep.
Same step.
Make your service.
Yep. Make your service, make your product, make your solution, whatever it's going to be. Step three, I probably would change a little bit.
From action?
Yes. Because without knowledge, you can't take action.
Without action, you don't get knowledge.
Both ways, right? I would say we probably would add a fourth step into that. And I would say knowledge and action can go hand in hand.
Yeah, true.
Because yes, you can, let's say you want to start up a mobile detailing business, for example, but you've never detailed a car before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't really take action because what happens if you accidentally scratch that car?
100%.
Now you're a liability. You don't have insurance. You don't have XYZ. So that would be a knowledge portion of, hey, let me understand what to do and then go take action immediately after that.
Yeah.
So
the only reason I got clients was because I knew how to use social media. If I didn't know any of that, I wouldn't have been able to reach out.
That's the knowledge aspect, So I'd say they go hand in hand. I'd say that's 3 and 4. Is figure out your product, service, solution, gain knowledge on who you're targeting, why you're targeting them, and what solution or value you're bringing, and then immediately take action. And once you immediately take action, it's compound interest from there.
Consistency,
it's the same way. It's the same way for a job, man.
Yeah. I don't got anything else. You got anything?
No, I mean.
What do you got?
I would say I do want to speak a little bit on the 2 months we've been down here, bro.
Okay.
Our last 2 months.
All right, let's run it.
Last 2 months. We went from.
Jeez.
Well, you start this first, bro, because you moved down here. I was already down here. So you moved down here about, 2 months ago?
I moved down here January 4th.
January 4th?
Yep.
And, you started your photography stuff. And how long did that take you to start seeing a profit?
Okay, so let's see. I started, whenever I first moved down here, I didn't get a job right away because I was pretty convicted. Before I moved down here, I had a job and I was saving up money. So I wanted to give myself 4 months to be here where if I didn't work a single day, I could still pay all of my expenses and not have to worry. Now, obviously I would still work, but I just wanted to give myself that leisure, all right, I'm good. I have time to figure some stuff out. So as soon as I moved down here, I instantly, it was funny because Ricky Hampton, in December before I moved down here, he had me go to one of his bodybuilding shows and I took some photos for him. And I was like, something about this felt right. I'm good at what I do. I could get paid to do this. I could travel places to do this. Let me just see if I can make this a business. So I started an Instagram account when I moved down here, and I had a bunch of old content that I took over my years, and I posted all of that. And then I was like, all right, I read a book one time. It was the very first business book I ever read in my life. It was called $1.80. No, I don't know if it was called that, but it was some book by Gary Vaynerchuk. And in chapter 21, he had this strategy called $1.80, where you go on when you go on your phone and you click on, let's say, the Tampa location, there's the top 9 posts. Mm-hmm. Well, those are 9, right? So you leave your 2 cents on each one. So it's you leave a comment on each post in the top 9, which totals 18 cents. And if you do that 10 times a day, it's $1.80. It's a $1.80 strategy. So you do that. And while you're commenting on all these posts and you're also posting your stuff, you're getting unreal engagement in your local area. People start reaching out to you hey, I saw your page. And my portfolio at the time, I was I could definitely take way better photos now. So I just started reaching out to people in the area that had some followers hey, let me just give you a free photo shoot, 20 to 30 pictures, only take an hour. And I would just post those, and then some of those clients would start reaching back out hey, I actually need you for this date. What's your rate? Or I just have some random messages. And then one day, it was actually a free video photo shoot. I did it for a guy, and I was just going to do it for free. I was going to shoot him some B-roll at the gym, and he looks at me. He's like, here, I'm going to send you some money within 10 minutes in. And I'm like, oh, you don't need to send me money. It's free. He's like, no. Anybody who works for me, I give them money. I was like, okay. And he sends me $300 right in the spot. And then he ended up sending me $200 afterwards. And I was like, in that moment, I was like, oh, wait a minute, I could do this. And where my prices were $50 an hour, I was like, no, these are going up. And
I think a big takeaway for the people that are watching for what you said is you did it for free, right? You went in with the intention to help someone through photography for free. You had no intention of getting a payout from that. You gave your best effort without needing or asking for a reward. Mm-hmm. And in return, you got rewarded.
Right.
And that's when you can start scaling that price and start charging those prices, because now you're okay, I can do this. Like, this makes sense. Like, he loved the photography. He loved the work. I know I can replicate this and make it compound.
Right.
So that's awesome, man. That is awesome.
Thanks.
So now where are you about to go?
Now I'm going to Mexico. I got a gig just to go to a holistic health retreat for 14 days for free and to just shoot it. And I don't have to pay a single dime to go. I get to have a wonderful time. And there's a bunch of influencers that are there with a bunch of followers. And I think it's a really good opportunity for me just to showcase my skills and to give to them and see where it takes me. Like you said earlier, I've been turning down a bunch of gigs this couple weeks leading up because I'm just trying to really focus on this. I don't want stressed out with any other workload. And yeah, that's where we're at now. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, dude, that's incredible. I'm really excited for you. I'm excited for where the future is going to take you. I know you got a lot of big things coming with the music as well. So everyone watching, be tuned for that. Guy makes some great music. Completely by yourself, right?
Yeah.
You make it completely by
I do
yourself?
work with people that make instrumentals and producers and stuff too, but I write them all myself and I sing them all myself. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible, man. And I mean, for me, 2 months ago, when we linked up, I randomly was like, "Yeah, dude, I'm starting a wholesaling real estate business," and
I was the only one crazy enough to be like, "Yeah,
yeah,
let's go."
him and Izzy were like, "You got it, man. You got it." I was like, "All right, cool." Izzy's like, "I believe you can do it." I was like, "All right, bet." And I went all in. So I still have my W-2 as of now. Probably won't in the next 30 days, but I joined a community. A lot of you have probably joined the community if you thought about real estate, wanting to get into it, and it is not the community to be in. I found out, I consulted a lawyer, and there's a lot of legal aspects behind the scenes that are very vulnerable to people. It doesn't put sellers and homeowners in the best spot, and especially buyers and wholesalers. So in that sense, I went from cold calling to digital marketing to multiple different avenues of what do I do, how do I do this, and kept trying to absorb information. Again, that fourth step or that third step was knowledge, right? And I kept absorbing information, reading books, figuring out everything. And keep in mind, this was within 60 days. I went to, while working a full-time job, I went from that point of trying all these different sources, different softwares, built my savings up to be able to expend and learn and trial and error and figure out what works for me, what doesn't work for me. How do I want to do this? Do I want to hire VAs? Do I want to hire, acquisition managers, disposition managers, or do I just want to be a one-man show? And I went the one-man show route and joined a different community. I paid a little bit of money for it, but it is 10,000% worth it. My next 30 days, I'm actually trying to dispo the 19 property portfolio right now. And we've only been at it 2 months, and I'm looking at a very big payday when we bring it across the finish line. So it's one of those things that you can do anything you put your mind to. You can achieve what you want to achieve. And this is only the beginning for both of us. You go into the retreat and working with all these different people, you said you were open and were like, man, I don't know if I'm even going to come back, right? And I think that's what life's all about is, you said you booked a one-way ticket. You felt more comfortable booking a one-way ticket than, a back home flight. So it's one of those same things for me is you build that positive anxiety, right? There's a level of fear, and if you don't feed into the fear, you're going to regret it more than not feeding into that fear and taking that action, regardless of what is to come. The portfolio I'm working with is over $1 million, and I would have never guessed 60 days ago that I would have an over $1 million portfolio under contract. So, and I'm not saying that to brag. I'm not saying that to make anyone think a certain way, but there's levels to the game. And I feel like I put in my time in not so in real estate, right, and wholesaling, but in the term of over the years, I put in my time, my effort, my reps to make me consistent and not give up. And I had 7 other deals locked up under contract that couldn't make it across the finish line. And joining this community within 12 days, I have an unlimited amount of support, and it's incredible. So if anyone's watching, go look into RJ Bates III, Titanium University. Phenomenal program, lifetime membership, and you will get incredible support and experience just being with the type of people that are in there. And yeah, I contribute a lot of my success that I have currently to that community. So, any of you going to watch, definitely hit up me or Matt if you have any questions. And yeah, you got anything else? I'm pretty much good, man.
I just got like a great feeling in my stomach of just like some future things that are going to happen. It's just, I feel like I want to give you another hug like I did down there. Cool, wrap it up. All right, brother. I love you. Until next time.
Love you too, brother.